Urgent, the main intrigue of the century. The US is pitting Zelenskyy and Putin against each other. An emergency meeting between the leaders of Ukraine and Russia in March. The first predictions. A bombshell has exploded. South Korea has struck Moscow. A double-strength blow. Kyiv in prime time. American weapons from Seoul will put a bold period to this. The Kremlin is tearing itself apart over this. Don't miss it. The Ukrainian armed forces have done the impossible. Putin's soldiers are in retreat. 10,000 of the best troops from Britain and France have taken up arms. Wow, the joint army is preparing to storm in like a hurricane. Trump is about to be shocked. The situation is escalating to the limit. The White House fell silent instantly. A secret, silent elimination of a politician. The Kremlin is frightened. Something shocking has surfaced. The war against Ukraine has started inside Russia. A terrifying process. Russians are begging for an end to the so-called special military operation. All this in our episode, Hell Point. A historic moment. Zelenskyy is going to meet with Putin. It's hard to believe. A resonant statement from the USA. New negotiations. The countdown has begun. 3 decisive weeks have begun. Kyiv is more determined than ever. The Kremlin is trapped. No one will leave the table until an agreement is reached. The dictator is trying to slip away. The deal is already on the table. Behind-the-scenes events that send chills down your spine. No one will be allowed further.
In the coming weeks, they may meet, face-to-face. Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin are preparing to sit down at the same negotiating table.
We have reduced everything to a single question, and we have discussed various reports. The solution to this question, which means there is a solution. If both sides want to solve this problem, we will solve it.
But the special envoy of the US President, Steve Witkoff, is clearly being disingenuous. In reality, each side in the negotiations has far more problems. And when it comes to the issue of a ceasefire, Kyiv and Moscow are approaching it from completely opposite sides. As for Volodymyr Zelenskyy, he outlined his vision for ending the hostilities in a major interview with the BBC that was released the day before.
Today, stopping Putin and not allowing him to occupy Ukraine, that is a victory for the world.
According to the Ukrainian leader, Putin will never voluntarily agree to a complete ceasefire. A ceasefire is a forced measure for the bunker dweller, since the occupier's army has exhausted all its resources and could simply collapse in the near future.
I believe that Putin needs this pause. He needs this pause too. That's the truth. No matter what he says, that's the truth. And when he recovers, our European partners say it will take 3 to 5 years. In my opinion, he will be able to recover in a few years, no more. So where he will go next, we do not know. But the fact is, he will want to continue.
He doesn't really hide his plans to continue the so-called special military operation. Putin himself. The bunker dweller, although he doesn't give interviews and rarely appears in front of cameras, does show up from time to time. And at every opportunity, he reminds Russians that the war will be long, exhausting, and increasingly so. And even more bloody.
You know, when everything is calm, measured, and stable for us, we get bored. Stagnation. We want some action. As soon as the action starts, everything goes haywire. And seconds and bullets. Unfortunately, bullets are whistling now. Then we get scared. It's terrifying, terrifying. Well, it's terrifying. And
Putin doesn't even hide the fact that he is doing everything to make this horror settle in every Russian.
Family is truly the most important and precious thing that we have in our lives today, providing us with constant love and support.
Instead of focusing on peace negotiations, the Kremlin is pouring all state resources into the military-industrial.
It is an incredibly intricate and complex situation. This has become possible in many respects thanks to the timely measures of state support that were adopted. And
while Donald Trump dreams of yet another peace deal with Russia by the summer of 2026, Moscow is actively recruiting new allies for itself.
New opportunities are opening up for deepening military technical cooperation with countries from other regions of the world, including states on the African continent. In
poor African countries, Putin is counting on massively recruiting cannon fodder to continue the war.
The total overall volume of military exports, according to the comprehensive plan for 2026, which we will formally finalize and officially approve today, is expected to experience a very substantial and significant increase.
All this indicates that the Kremlin is not just preparing for World War III. Putin has already started it.
I believe that Putin has already started it. The question is how much territory he can seize. And the question is how to stop him. Not so that Russia doesn't win. Russia wants to bring its own peace and change the lives of people who are happy with the way things are.
The Russian dictator is pushing the same message openly from the podiums to the masses, just in different packaging. They say that enemies are all around, imposing on Russians. A foreign way of life with centralized water supply and toilets in apartments, as well as gas heating, electricity, and democracy.
Their unification was based on entirely distinct and contrasting principles. They were united by an overwhelming desire for financial profit, the desire to forcibly take everything away from us, to conquer, destroy, and seize.
And we were united by the desire to preserve everything. Our common land, our families, our culture, our traditions.
How Putin and his generals preserve land, culture, and traditions is clearly seen in the example of Ukrainian cities wiped off the face of the earth by Russian liberators.
This is very important. This is good. This needs to be supported.
It turns out that while Volodymyr Zelenskyy is doing everything in his power to achieve real peace, Putin and his generals are doing everything to ensure the war does not end. That is why Western countries should firmly suppress the Kremlin's desires, not try to appease the man in the bunker.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The battle for life continues. Help for a severely wounded hero. Doctors have already achieved the impossible, but ahead lies not just recovery, but a series of complex surgeries. All the details on how you can help our defender. See the description below the video. A revolutionary moment has arrived. South Korea has openly gone against Moscow. A high-profile statement. The Pearl Initiative is expanding. Weapons for the armed forces are pouring in. This has left Moscow reeling. Seoul is now playing by its own rules. This is a guaranteed victory for Ukraine. The DPRK-Russia alliance is visibly weakening. A secret blow to Putin's gut has set an irreversible process in motion. What will happen next? We are watching closely. Another scandal involving the Russian Foreign Ministry is once again in the spotlight. Well, this really is a circus, honestly. Zakharova moved on to threats against the South Korean side in the event that Seoul joins the NATO Pural program to finance the purchase of American weapons for the Ukrainian army. Any possible participation by the Republic of Korea in such deliveries, in any form, direct or indirect, only pushes back the prospects for resolving the conflict. In this case, we will be forced to exercise our right to take appropriate measures, including...
When we talk about asymmetric measures, we are referring to specific types of metrics or evaluative standards that do not correspond equally across different sides or variables, often resulting in a significant imbalance that must be carefully analyzed to understand the full scope of the data being presented in this particular context. It's rather laughable because we understand that Russia's capabilities on the international stage have become quite limited. Basically, all the resources that Putin has, he has thrown into the war with Ukraine.
Earlier, South Korean media, citing diplomatic sources, reported that Seoul is considering various options for supporting Kyiv. Among the mechanisms being discussed is the possible participation in the Pearl Initiative, which involves purchasing US weaponry for subsequent transfer to the Ukrainian side. At the same time, the South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs noted that most likely the authorities will limit themselves to purchasing non-lethal.
The wide variety of specialized tools, heavy machinery, and essential technical gear required for this specific operation. Here are the latest updates about the desire to join the F-16 initiative, which is indeed quite revolutionary and unexpected, even considering that Ukraine and South Korea are, in principle, in the same camp of allies. Since
the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Seoul has provided Kyiv only with non-lethal and other humanitarian aid. Despite the fact that North Korea has sent thousands of its soldiers to help the Kremlin, as well as millions of artillery shells, missiles, and heavy equipment.
Moscow supports in any disastrous situation. The brutal and cannibalistic regime of North Korea stands as an incredibly obvious contradiction to all of the various peaceful plans and diplomatic efforts that currently exist in the southern part of this divided peninsula.
And on the eve of the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a large banner appeared on the building of the Russian embassy in Seoul, with the inscription, "Victory will be ours." The South Korean government asked for it to be removed, but the Russian side refused.
Russia is trying by all available means to spread its propaganda and impose narratives that benefit the Kremlin, and this kind of stupid kitsch with a banner at the Russian embassy obviously hurts the eyes of any civilized tourist or resident of Seoul. So it's only logical for South Korea to demand this and that Russia will appear unfriendly. It's a mess, but at the same time, South Korea itself, they understand very clearly what stakes Moscow is placing in the region. And all of them, of course, are in Pyongyang's favor. Pyongyang.
North Korea is one of the few countries where the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin can fly without fearing arrest. Moscow secured military support from Pyongyang when it realized it would not be able to defeat Ukraine. According to intelligence estimates, up to 14,000 North Korean soldiers may have been sent to Russia. A significant number of them have already been killed. And North Korea continues to supply weapons.
We are currently making our way across the vast and beautiful landscape as we travel directly toward the historic and iconic city of Moscow, which serves as the heart of the nation. Because of these developing circumstances, it has become increasingly clear that North Korea, which is actively securing strategic military and economic support from the Russian Federation, is also now having very open and clear high-level meetings with China. Consequently, they feel increasingly capable of exerting more and more significant pressure on their immediate neighbors in the region, creating a much more complex and tense security environment for everyone involved.
North Korea and China are the most significant supporters of Russia's war against Ukraine. They supply Moscow with electronics and technologies for missile production, as well as drones, tanks, and artillery shells. In return, the Kremlin shares technologies with them that allow the development of missile and nuclear programs. You have to see this. Our forces threw the Russians onto a scorching frying pan. The Russian army is being forced to retreat. These are the results of the counteroffensive that everyone had kept silent about until now. Zelenskyy openly sent foreign troops to the front line. Britain and France are supplying the soldiers. Putin is losing his footing. Russian generals have come up with something that the dictator is now ashamed to admit. About this and more, details to follow. Good drones in Tatarstan have targeted the Kalikino oil pumping station. In these shots, you see the combat operations of military intelligence officers in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Direct firefights with the enemy, destruction of infantry and shelters, and interception of enemy drones in the sky. We
are currently in the process of reallocating our reserves within certain specific areas. And in others, we are actively reinforcing and strengthening our units with new detachments or fresh reserves.
The Russian Federation has not changed its tactics in the Zaporizhzhia, Dnipro, Kherson, or Kharkiv directions. There is no enemy advance in the Sumy direction. We are working to prevent an escalation in the Chernihiv direction, states the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr.
According to President Zelenskyy, their forces have successfully launched a major counteroffensive operation, which resulted in the liberation of 8 different settlements. This military effort has reclaimed almost 300 square kilometers of territory. These areas were liberated as the troops continued their steady advance in the strategic direction of both Dnipropetrovsk and Pokrovsk. They successfully managed to push back and distance the troops of the Russian Federation from the broader administrative territories of the Dnipropetrovsk region to significantly reduce the number of casualties and protect the lives of the local population, especially because hostile unmanned aerial vehicles were frequently reaching the area and striking critical infrastructure and various civilian vehicles.
According to the president, since December, the armed forces of Ukraine have been eliminating 30,000 to 35,000 Russian servicemen per month, while Russia mobilizes 40,000 to 44,000. 1 kilometer of enemy advance costs approximately 157 killed. Putin has already started World War III. And the only thing that can stop the aggressor country is military and economic pressure, President Zelenskyy emphasized.
It was not our president of Ukraine who wrote 28 points and ran to Trump to ask for a truce, but Putin, who wrote 28 points as he sees them and ran to Trump so that he would try to pressure Ukraine into signing a truce. A truce with the Russian Federation from Ukraine's side can only be achieved from a position of strength, not from the position of a beaten sheep or a state that will beg and be ready to give up our territories to the Russian Federation, but from the position of a strong state, and only with the support, unfortunately, of Europe and our American partners will we be able to resolve this situation.
Ukraine wants to see the support of partner military contingents on the front line of defense, not in relatively safe cities. In Western Ukraine?
If anyone thinks that the war will end in half a year or in 2 or 3 months, in my view, the war will probably last up to 2 years, definitely, because unfortunately our partners are acting very sluggishly. They are pursuing the same policy as with Syria. Today they have one policy, tomorrow they revise it, especially our American President Trump.
Another confirmation of the inhumane treatment of Russian army soldiers in a new interception by Ukrainian military intelligence.
The High Commander's official order, in a very general sense, was formally addressed to everyone.
To the operation, it was addressed. Why are all these ridiculous assaults happening? Because they are being driven in one direction at gunpoint.
The Russian command does not ask why their soldiers are left out in the open field without water or food. Instead, they call for shooting the legs of those who disagree and issue criminal orders.